Let's get ready to rumble!
I got hit him in the shoulder. That's our plan with Coach Ferry. That's our plan. So get him hurt in the shoulder. So that's right. That's our plan.
When he says that was their plan, was that pre-fight? I mean, Gary said he was injured pre-fight, but he didn't say where he was injured. Did Gary have a mole in his camp who snitched to MAGSAYO that you should target the right shoulder? That's where Gary's injured. Or did they figure it out as the fight went along? They being MAGSAYO and Freddie. You can see this little sequence here in the early rounds where he's targeting the shoulder with the right hand. And that punch did stagger Gary. And from what I remember, it changed the course of the fight a little. Probably a close enough fight to warrant a rematch for the deposed champion. But he said his shoulder hasn't been right for years and he's needed to have a surgery on it. So he needs to get that surgery to correct the shoulder before he fights at this level again. Because if he goes into an immediate rematch and the result goes the same way, what's he going to say? What, your shoulder again? Nobody wants to hear that. He needs to get himself right. There was a few fighters who missed their enrollment on the clean boxing program provided by the WBC. Two of them were matchroom fighters. Lee McGregor was the other. Eddie said the reason that Conor Benn, he couldn't speak for Lee McGregor obviously, but Conor Benn and Chris Billion Smith, he said poor admin and that is quite an arduous task filling out the form to apply for the clean boxing program. Eddie said the forms have been filled out and they'll be on their way to the WBC, so both fighters will be ranked again. What was more telling is the reaction to the fact that they hadn't enrolled and the suspicion, automatic suspicion, when both Conor and Billiam Smith are signed up to the free 65-day UCAD testing program in conjunction with the board, and it's way more stricter and way more arduous. The testing is tougher than the clean boxing program, and it's more frequent unless you're paying VADA a bag full of money, like AJ, who does 365 UCAD testing like Conor and Billiam. He does that, and he also pays VADA a certain amount for testing for his fights, right? Unless you're paying out extra, which means you're going to be an elite level earner, so you can cover the costs of all that. Joining this CBP thing is overhyped. All this clean boxing program, and I said this from years back when everybody was like, yeah, VADA, 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 when they were popping everyone. This is going to turn into a potential monopoly where, oh, you don't sign up for the clean boxing program, he's dirty. Says who? Basic CBP testing isn't all that, it's not that frequent, and it's not that stringent. Let's get that straight. Added to that, the WBC have given a certain Latin, if that's the correct geographic location of the country, a lot of passes with their doping infringements. Concession after concession after concession. So don't tell me about no WBC clean boxing program or VADA, this, that, and that, and that. They ain't doing any more to clean up the sport than all the other agencies, as far as I'm concerned.
You know, it's a good system, that WBC system, but at the same time, it's not very frequent in terms of testing. I reckon I've got 100 fighters signed to that. I'm not sure you could say 10% have ever been tested by the WBC.
The best boxer on the planet is?
Jake Paul.
Why?
I mean, who's doing it?
And I'm going to prove that. You know, that's the beautiful thing about this is I'm going to become a world champion because everyone said I couldn't and that I wasn't a real boxer.
Hey Jake, how about the real man's fight? I will put my butts on table, do you wanna take a bite? Looks like you're scared, you little bitch boy. Kid, pick up the phone and put down your toys. Looks like you have a little monkey balls, only hanging around with the Pornhub dolls. Oh, I'm sorry, I guess that was your girl. She's trying to find her nuts like a little...
I actually find the Marius BREIDIS chasing the Jake Paul fight quite hilarious. I thought he was a straight-laced guy with no frills. But, you know, he's got his rap song, he's got his diss bars, and he's just going for it, isn't he? The Sauerlands, Callie and Neeson on Twitter, rather than, you know, pretend that they're really embarrassed, they're playing along with it. They're saying Paul is the tougher fight in response to BREIDIS avoiding Lawrence Okoli. Come on a serious note, you know I think he should be fighting Okoli. Of course he should, but it's bizarre, it's funny, and it's making me laugh. What do you want me to say? I know Lawrence has been clowning BREIDIS about this, but yo, Lawrence spits as well. Maybe they could have a rap battle. Nothing confirmed yet, but Andrade, they're saying, and when I say they, I mean they. He's saying no one specifically that he could give up the WBO 160-pound title and go challenge Zach Parker for the 168 interim title and become a Mando for Canelo. Now, a lot of people are chastising Andrade. He hasn't made a decision yet because he's not fighting Johnny Beck, you know, even though he hasn't fucking did shit. And if anyone knows anything about boxing, they would know this is a strategic mandatory to keep him away from either Triple G, Munguia, or Charlo. That's all this is. 2 Mandos in 1 year. When's the last time any of the other middleweight titleists have had 2 Mandos in 1 year? What happens to fighters, you know? And I said it about Michael Hunter when everybody had him as the so-called boogeyman, the throwback fighter. I said he's going to be forced into a position to start playing politics and you guys ain't going to like it. And that's happened to Andrade. With Andrade, it's a little different. Mike's never had a belt. Andrade actually has possession of something that the likes of Golovkin, Charlo, and Munguia should want. And Canelo, for that matter. When Canelo was at 160, all he needed was Andrade's belt to become undisputed at 160. Did he go for it? No. And they're not challenging the guy. Mike Hunter's situation is a little different. And, you know, this is just my take, but from a historical context, you don't call a belt holder a boogeyman. He's not a boogeyman is for contenders who can't get shots at titles like Hunter. He was a boogeyman for a little while, till he bricked it when the Hrgovic eliminator came up. But you don't put Andrade in that same category. He's a champion. Modern day standards should be that champions unify against each other. You know, you can't have one standard for one champion and another for others like Golovkin and Charlo. And Murata, for that matter. If they're going to play politics, I'm not saying it's right Andrade does, and I don't like what he's doing, to be honest, but I'm not going to jump on a bandwagon and start tearing strips of him. I'm just not going to do that. At least not for now. You know, I'm going to give him 2022 to get his career straight, and if not, then it's going to be a bit of a bust. It is what it is. But hopefully he can get the fights that he deserves. If he can keep winning at this level. What did Golovkin do for the whole of 2021? Nothing. He sat out the whole year waiting for Murata. While the Andrade fight was just sitting there. They're on the same network, just sitting there. And he did nothing. He gets a pass. Andrade fought Liam Williams, who at the time people were saying, oh, you better not duck Liam because, you know, Liam's a bit tasty. And when he handled him, you know, it was unimpressive, it was boring, this, that. We're going on, 2.5 years that Murata's been inactive and hasn't defended his belt. Where's the scorn for him? The same with the PBC fanatics backing up Charlo for not fighting Andrade. Well, what's the truth though? Like, you know, like, is Jason Quigley any worse than Steve Rolls and Zarameta and whoever Golovkin has fought recently? Any worse? And let's remember, Liam Williams was his mandatory. Apart from Danny Jacobs, does Golovkin have any better wins than Andrade did at 160 against Liam Williams? You'd probably say Jacobs, but, you know, I'm not even sure if Golovkin won that fight. And Andrade has tried to get the fights. He's tried to get the fights at 160. It's Golovkin who's held up the division, despite what you want to say, and whatever narrative you want to put out there, it's him who's held up the division. The likes of him, Murata, and Charlo. Not Andrade. If Andrade does vacate the belt, then it will be Johnny Beck versus Munguia. Will Munguia take his shot this time? He had a shot at Andrade for the belt, but he declined it. So, you know, look, you can single out Andrade if you want. I'll leave it there. So Frank edges Eddie out of the purse bid with a 31 million bid, and Eddie put up a bid of 24. We're talking pounds, not dollars. I'm not shocked. The reason I'm not shocked is Dillian doesn't have a contract with Eddie. He doesn't have a contract. It's fight by fight, and as amicable as it seems, business is business, and Eddie's not going to fully commit to a fighter who could take off and go anywhere. Let's say he does beat Fury. He's a free agent. Now, look, Eddie's done some big fights like Canelo, Saunders, Canelo, Callum Smith, unifications, but heavy, whether it's been his fault or not, and for the most part it hasn't, like AJ versus Wilder, Wilder walked away from the DAZN deal, or Fury versus AJ, where Fury in the arbitration walked away from the fight. He's not managing to get a lot of the huge big fights done right now. Obviously his work with Anthony Joshua cannot be questioned, but a lot of people are expecting to win that bid. But I did say in one of the weeklies, I'm not sure if he really wants to pay out all that money. I mean, Frank Warren and Bob Arum, they didn't want to pay it out, but they went higher than Eddie. They went higher. And how much faith does he really have in Dylan, the fact that he was outbid by Frank? Now, my suspicion, can't be sure, is that Frank was backed by some of that Bob Arum ESPN/Disney money, and they came up big. They came up big. A lot of people thought Eddie was going to win it. My man 68 Kaiser, just borrowing from him a little, he said Daniel Kinahan, perhaps a little cartel influence here, or otherwise, maybe Eddie's got enough on his plate trying to put this USYK Joshua fight together. The 80-20 split will see Dylan get 6.1. Fury will get a huge purse of 24 million. Fury has hinted the fight could take place in the UK. I'm not so sure it won't end up in Saudi. The step aside talk about Anthony Joshua leaving the path clear for Fury to fight USYK. The talks broke down late Thursday, and Eddie Hearn is saying that Fury didn't want to fight USYK. Alex Krashuk, USYK's promoter, they also said that Fury has bottled the fight versus USYK. Now, to back up Eddie Hearn's claim that Fury pulled out of the fight, the Sun are saying Fury pulls out of Alexander Usyk fight, which would have been for Undisputed. AJ was considering the deal, Eddie claims. John Fury said Fury would have took the money. It's a business. I would have took it too. But the Middle Eastern backers, as they're saying here, were going to bankroll all the step-aside money. Whatever Dylan was going to get, they were going to bankroll it. Hearn said they were willing to look at this, but they also needed a guarantee of fighting the winner between Fury and Usyk.
Had to do this video. Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua have got to be the worstest damn businessmen in history. Today they lost $90 million. God son of a crazy.
I don't know. There's a few angles here. Fury said it's greed. John Fury said that Eddie and AJ blew a £100 million deal. Perhaps he means if they were to add the step-aside money to his purse, he would get for taking on the winner out of Fury and Usyk. Perhaps that's what he means. Because if they give AJ 15 and let's say Dillian 5 or whatever to sit it out, I mean, that's got to come out of Fury and Usyk's purse. Bob Arum and Frank Warren just don't look like the type to me who would just pay that type of step-aside money to get a fight done, undisputed or not. And look, he's saying here as well, John Fury later confirmed his son had walked away from a fight with Usyk, but purely to spite Hearn and Joshua. And that's why Hearn is saying Fury rejected a fight with Usyk unless he could get a warm-up fight in March. Okay. Let's see what you're saying, Eddie. So they walked away. They could have actually got the fight done. They walked away. So they could have terminated the contract with Wilder in 2020, and they blew that to go for an arbitration and blew the undisputed fight with Anthony Joshua. 2022, Fury's talking about undisputed with Usyk running his mouth if AJ's going to step aside or not. The Saudis were going to bankroll the step aside. They walked away, either because maybe the step-aside money would have ate into Fury's purse, or slow, Tyson Fury just didn't fancy taking on Usyk. Now, you know, Fury laughed at that, and his fans are laughing at that. But what would you expect Fury to say? That he didn't fancy his chances against Usyk? He's not going to say that, is he? He's going to come out all mouth, running and bravado. But whatever the reason is, he walked away from the undisputed fight. That's all Fury and Wilder seem to do for the last 4 years or so, is walk away from undisputed. That's all they seem to do. I don't know. I don't really care, to be honest. So at least Dylan's going to get his shot finally, unless COVID or injury strikes down both men. It's set for April, and that's that.
6 million ways to die. Choose one.
It says here that Dylan was willing to step aside for 5 million. I mean, Dylan. The purse bid's worked out for Dylan, hasn't it? Because what were they offering him? 3 million before? Because of what his last purse was allegedly against Povetkin. So he's getting more than the 3 million. He's getting double bubble. Yo, you get a shot at the WBC Heavyweight Championship, your first title shot. It's a good day for Dillian. While I was checking that story out on the Sun website, I glimpsed where they were talking about Joseph Parker saying he's never going to fight Tyson Fury because he loves him and he's his brother. And they titled it Cozy Parker. The Sun, they've always had these catchy, you have to say catchy, headlines that for a red top tabloid in Britain, it worked well for them. You have to say it worked well for them. As crass as some of them may have been. Tell you what, man, you see all them figures being flashed around. I mean, Dillian, to some, is getting the short end of the stick. £6 million. What is that? 10 times the amount that Ngannou from the UFC earned in what was supposed to be a big showdown. That's why Ngannou wanted to fight Fury. Vitali Klitschko, he managed to fit some boxing analysis in with to more pressing issues in that region of the world. He pleaded with AJ not to take the step-aside money. It will show weakness. He wants Joshua to stay on course for a rematch with Alexander USYK. He said if Joshua beats USYK, there will be huge interest in Joshua versus Fury, or Joshua versus Dillian. It will be the main fight of the past 10 years. Joshua is a classic boxer. Fury is unorthodox. Both are punchers. Both can decide the fight at any moment. Both are world-class fighters and can knock each other out at any second. Well, Vitali is long time retired, and who knows what he would have done in a similar situation with all that money being offered to him, hypothetically. And then when it came to the situation with Russia, he's not too pleased about Germany for supplying Ukraine with 5,000 military helmets while stopping short of providing weapons. That's what he said on Sky. He said, I want to say thank you, but it's not enough. It's not really help. He said the Germans have to decide which side they are on, as right now it's not clear. He said, what kind of support will Germany send next? Pillows? Klitschko, however, gave thanks to Boris Johnson, the British PM, for sending weapons to the Ukraine. Okay. Klitschko has been mayor of Kiev since 2014, said that Ukraine wants to be a European country and be more of a democratic European country, which I'm guessing that Russia are in opposition to. It's a very serious situation. Klitschko saying they have to defend their country. He said, we never think about war and we hope it will never come to that. But right now in this situation, they have to prepare to defend their country. Ukraine is ready to fight Russia. We don't have any other choice. If someone attacks us, we have to defend our families, our cities. He said attack would be Putin's biggest mistake. He has challenged Putin, saying that the world has changed. He added that the time is different and the Ukraine does not share a vision that harks back to the Soviet Union. Mr. Klitschko, as they're addressing him here on Sky, said that if Russia decides to attack, it would be the biggest mistake of Mr. Putin's presidency. Now, it's been a 7-year conflict. Apparently, you can go back to 1918, since the Ukraine have been striving to gain their independence after the collapse of the Russian monarchy in 1917. Will they be able to resolve this without too much bloodshed? You would hope so. You would hope so, but history tells us these conflicts seem to bring out the pig ignorance in certain individuals, and I'll say no more because I'm not that knowledgeable on the topic, so there you go. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, why are you covering all this? This has got nothing to do with boxing. I get that, but I was at my mum's today and I saw Vitali on Sky talking about it, and I turned up the volume and was listening, so I've had a little bit of a personal interest in that as a news story today, so indulge me, if you will. MAKABU and MUCHUNO weigh in for the WBC Cruiserweight title fight. Does the winner still get Canelo? I'm not sure. Canelo was supposed to be in the building at the Packard Music Hall in America. It's a Don King production. MUCHUNO, he weighed in just over 198, and MAKABU came in at 197. So they're both well inside the limit. I thought the WBC was supposed to lower the cruiserweight limit, wasn't they, after the Bridgerweight thing came in? But it's still at 200. This is the second meeting between MUCHUNO and MAKABU. MAKABU stopped him previously. He came from behind and stopped him in the 11th in 2015. Before I leave you guys, we got Josh Warrington. He's going to take on KIKO Martinez for the IBF strap that Josh Warrington previously held. KIKO won the belt in a massive upset against Kid Galahad a few months back. A lot of people are saying that Warrington really should go and clean up his situation with Lara. Lara knocked him out last year. Lara, is it Mauricio Lara? He was an unheralded Mexican. He was supposed to give Warrington some stiff rounds, but no more than that. He knocked him out in 9, I believe it was. It was a bad beating. Then they had the rematch and it ended very unsatisfactorily. I think it was a no contest. But in Warrington's defense, will Lara be healed up with them cuts? You know, like, because, you know, Warrington was headbutting him deliberately and them cuts look pretty bad. I don't think he's going to be healed for any time soon, and I don't think it would be good for Warrington just to wait about. And if he gets an opportunity to get his belt back that he vacated rather than fighting Galahad in a rematch, then, you know, he's going to take it. Eddie's backing him. It's going to do a nice number at Headingley where they play cricket. A lot of people will turn up. I believe Galahad is moving up, or Eddie was saying that he could move up because he hasn't looked good on the scales for a long time. So he won't be getting the immediate rematch with KIKO. Looks like he's going to go up to 130. Funny how things change and turn around. Last time KIKO and Warrington fought, Warrington was defending that same belt against KIKO. I hear the decision was pretty controversial. I didn't watch the fight, but Warrington got the nod. And this time around, KIKO's defending that same belt against Warrington. Can KIKO keep the streak going? Is Warrington in decline? I think it's an interesting fight. And in all truth, I want to hear it out of Kid Galahad's mouth rather than Eddie, because I have a feeling he's going to want to fight the winner of that fight. But maybe it's just time to move up. He's been at Feather for how long? A lot of people have been getting at me, where's the weekly? Where's the weekly? Well,
Here it is. Bam!